Hey guys, just wanted to show you what I've been working on lately. I think I'm officially done tracking the guitars for this song that I've been working on with my band, but I still need to make adjustments to the guitar tone. So what you're going to hear today is not the final guitar tone. But I've been messing around with editing and discovered some pretty cool tricks that I wanted to share with you guys. People seem to have different opinions about what makes a good recording. Some people think a good recording is capturing a good performance, even if there are a few mistakes in there. On the opposite end of the spectrum, people think a good recording is absolutely perfect and no mistakes at all. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of that. I want it to be as perfect as humanly possible. Now, if I could have it my way, I would play the whole song from beginning to end with no mistakes, and that would be the take I would use. But the truth is, there's a pressure that comes with recording, and it's just like really difficult, if not impossible, to get a perfect take. In a live setting, it's okay to have like the occasional note buzz or a string ringing out because people might not even notice. But on a record where people are going to listen to it over and over again, I don't want there to be any noticeable mistakes. So what I like to do is to break it up into sections. If you look here, you can see there's different sections to the song. There's an intro section, a verse section, a chorus, bridge 1, bridge 2, and so on. I'll just focus on the intro, play that, try to get it as perfect as possible, and once I'm satisfied, then I'll move on to the next section and the next one and so on and so forth. I don't think it's considered cheating because you're still playing the song and you're still playing a fairly good section of music. It's not like you're just playing a few notes and then the next few notes and then slowly stitching it together. As long as you're not trying to get around the fact that you can't play the riff, I don't think it's cheating. Another thing I like to do to help smooth out the transitions is when I finish a section, I'll play into the next few measures of the next section. So that way, when I cut it together, I have some room to smooth out that transition and get it sounding as natural as possible. Once you've done your recording, then we get into the editing stage, and editing is another section where you could potentially cheat, but most editing works best if you already have a good performance. I like to use editing to enhance the performances and to clean up some of the technicalities that come with guitar. The truth of the matter is, electric guitar is just a very noisy instrument, and no matter how clean you play, there's going to be some background noise that's kind of annoying. So let's have a look at the beginning here. This opening riff has a few sections where the guitar is actually cut out and it's just silence. And if you hear the original guitars, you can hear that there's kind of some background humming that's really distracting. Right? Like, that doesn't sound good. So the first thing you could do is just turn on a noise gate. And what a noise gate basically does is it allows loud volumes to come through, but anything really quiet like a hum or a hiss, it'll cancel that stuff out. So here's what it sounds like with the noise gate on. So not too bad, and that might even be good enough. But there's a few sections, like if you hear that first part, where you get this sort of like sucky sound with the hum. I don't know if you could hear that. And in headphones, that's going to be much more apparent. So you could increase the threshold of the noise gate, but once you're doing that, it's going to start affecting some of the actual notes that you're playing. So this is where some editing comes in. The next thing you could try to do is just cutting out. And sometimes this works pretty good, but sometimes it can sound really unnatural. Like, it's not too bad, but it's just a little too unnatural to me. It might work in the mix with the drums. Nope, it still sounds unnatural to me. So that's a bit too much. So what I like to do is cut off most of that stuff and then have just a really quick fade going into that. I cut out all that silence and then I've just got these quick fades happening at the end of the playing so that it can get rid of that extra noise. Much cleaner. Let's listen to the guitars by themselves. And you might have to play around to find like that sweet spot where it's really tight and clean but still sounds natural. If you take the time, it really is worth it. So that's kind of one trick you can do. Moving along here, we get to another section in the song where one guitar cuts out but the other guitar keeps playing. So you can see right here, that's where it's happening. And the noise gate does a pretty good job. If you listen to it, it sounds all right. It's kind of one of those things that you might not really notice it when it's there, but you'll notice when it's gone. So I'll go ahead and just show you what it sounds like with the edit. right? It's just a lot tighter, especially when you add the drums back. And it's interesting, you can see right there, I've actually got it cut right on the beat, which normally I wouldn't do, but sometimes it works. Sometimes you can cut right on the beat, and I like to do that for silent spots so that it all just kicks in at once. So again, you just kind of have to use your ears to be able to tell if it sounds better right on the beat or a little before or whatever. So then this next section here, you might notice that there's a cut right on these last two notes here. And the reason for that was because of a technical issue with the guitar itself. No matter how I would palm mute that, there would always be this sort of ringing sound that was coming from the strings. It was sort of a kind of a high chimey kind of ringing sound. So it was something like from the guitar itself, not the notes or the way it was played. And usually a problem like this would be fixed because you'd put a piece of cloth or something right at the nut so that it could keep it from ringing out or making any weird noises. But I hadn't done that, so I actually had to just re-record that bit, and I actually had to touch that part of the nut with my finger and just kind of play it in a weird way to keep it from having that chimey ring out sound. So that happens too. Sometimes you got to punch in at a certain area because of technical issues. So at this point, we have this like really sudden stop, and then it kicks in, and I want the chorus to be kind of big. So your first instinct might be, again, to cut right on the beat so that everything comes in at once. But to me, that just sounds a bit too unnatural. You hear the guitars just kind of all of a sudden cut out, and then they kind of all of a sudden pop up again. It doesn't really sound that great. And sometimes it'll sound weird on its own, but sound good with the drums, but in this case, no. It almost sounds like some kind of glitch or something. So I just like to add a quick fade at the end of these cuts here. It keeps it from sounding so abrupt and just smooths out that transition. And then what's cool here is that I actually did a pretty good job coming in on beat, but no matter how good you are, you can see that audio wave is just a little before the beat. But I did a pretty good job. It's actually really close to being on beat. But you want to get that attack from like the very beginning of the note. I like to just pull back the audio file a little bit and add a quick fade in. So that way you're getting the best of both worlds. You're still getting that instantaneous like explosion when everything comes in together, but it has some leeway into it, so it sounds a bit more natural. Like a lot smoother, right? And then even better when you add the drums. So all that stuff is pretty basic though. It's actually this next section that inspired me to make this video. We get to this section in the song where there's these really quick palm mutes. And even though I played it really tight, there's just going to be some extra background noise with the guitars. So go ahead and listen to this section and you'll hear it. I'm actually going to turn the noise gate off and you'll hear how noisy this section is without any editing. It's just a lot of that background hum. Even though the noise gate helps a little bit, there's still just a little too much noise there that can be really distracting, especially in headphones. So you could cut that silence out, but again, I think it's just a tad too glitchy sounding. Because the sound is just stopping too abrupt and starting too abrupt. So what I like to do is kind of tedious, but I think it really pays off. So I try to find the very middle of the silence. I find that gap right there, and I'll do a cut. And then the track before it, I'll have that fade out, and then the track after it, I'll have fade in. So basically what's happening is right when the guitars are done playing, it just really quickly fades out, and then fades in. So it's sort of smoothly transitioning into that silence and then smoothly transitioning back into the sound. And I just love the way this sounds. It's so tight. Like, it still sounds very natural, but it sounds really tight and polished. And it sounds even better when you got the drums. Like, that gets me bobbing my head. And then one last thing I wanted to show you guys that I almost forgot about is having extra guitar tracks. So go ahead and have a listen real quick. You hear that obviously high note that kind of leads into the chorus. Here's what it sounds like without it. Right? It's just missing something. So the way we intend to do that live is having one of the guitars play it. But if you do that in the recorded setting and you've got both guitars panned left and right, it can sound a tad lopsided because you've got one guitar playing these thick chords and this other guitar playing these single notes. So to keep that sounding symmetrical and a little less distracting, I just recorded a third guitar that's playing this little lead part here. And then I'm using the same tricks I've showed you before. I've got a quick fade in and a quick fade out just so that it comes in really clean and clear. And then while these guitars are panned hard left and right, I just left this one in the middle. So even though that's something that doesn't really makes sense, like, you know, in a live setting we just have this one random guy come out of nowhere to play that one note. Yeah, you know, it doesn't make sense, but it sounds good and it works good in a recorded setting. So there are certain editing tricks like that that I think are really cool, and it's kind of fun to discover that kind of stuff and try it out. This same trick works good for like guitar solos and things like that. But hopefully you picked up a few tricks here that are really useful. It can be a lot of work, you know, adding these little cuts and edits and stuff, but I think if you take the time to do it, it really pays off and it's going to take your mix to that next level. Hopefully you found this interesting, and I'll keep you updated on the song. I do feel a little behind schedule. I don't know if I'm going to reach the deadline I was hoping, but I'm going to keep working on it, and yeah, until next time.